Welcome back once again to the Do Whatever podcast. So I've got a cool one this week. I'm really, really proud of this episode. My guest this week is Kevin Troyer. Kevin Troyer is a pro mixed martial artist, and he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a black belt, the highest level attainable in the academy where I train in Muay Thai. In Muay Thai kickboxing. So, he's a badass. That's, there's no other way to say it. But the reason I thought it would be interesting initially was just because, I interact with this guy several times a week. I think he's an engaging coach. I think he's a very interesting personality. He's a unique person, and he's also incredibly knowledgeable and a good coach. I'm always kind of drawn to good coaches. I always want to improve my game as a coach and as somebody that's trying to help throwing athletes or youth athletes, all that kind of stuff. I always want to kind of, sharpen my blade, so to speak, be around good coaches, surround myself with good people. So I thought that'd be interesting in and of itself. And that's a good part of the conversation, as you'll hear. But what I also found in Kevin was, and obviously him being a competing mixed martial artist, as a total mixed martial arts fanboy, like that's cool to me. Somebody that's doing the thing, somebody that's actually walking the walk, and especially somebody that teaches and coaches walking the walk like that. I think that's cool. So those were the initial reasons I thought it would be cool. But what happened through the course of the conversation is that I really found what I believe to be a kindred spirit in the world of do whatever, in the do whatever philosophy. And this guy, like I said, we've interacted as coach and student quite a bit, but being able to sit down and just talk on a more relaxed level, I kind of got to see what this guy's journey was all about. And this is somebody who, it hasn't always been martial arts. It hasn't always been jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu was not the first stop on, his journey. It wasn't the initial goal. It wasn't like the thing that he was always driving for. It wasn't this lifelong dream. It was something that he found and he elevated to a passion. And, I think it's really very interesting, and we get into that. This is a guy that's been competed as a pro in two different sports. You'll hear in the podcast, this is a guy that competed in BMX, and then he competed as a pro, and he competed in mixed martial arts. So I got really interested in that journey and that idea of how you can have such vastly different skills, parts of your life, hobbies, if you want to call them that, if that's your particular thing, or just pursuits, how they can be so vastly different, but yet you can reach a high level in both of those, and you can attack them with the same passion. But I use that term kindred spirit because I feel that, I've gone through parts of my life where one particular pursuit, a certain sport, or a field of study was the passion, and that was the thing that's what it was all about, and they got me to a certain level. But then, things maybe last a decade or less sometimes, and you find the next thing, and you find ways to build on that momentum that you got from learning to get to a certain level, or to a high level, if you will, in the last thing. And you take those lessons forward, you kind of roll those forward, and all of a sudden, as I often talk about, a big part of my do whatever lifestyle is that ability to take the momentum, take the knowledge, take the skills, take the ability to practice, the knowledge of how to practice, how to get good at something, and move into the next thing with that. What is the next thing that I'm going to elevate to a passion? So that was very fun to talk to Kevin about. Kevin is not the typical picture of what you would think what you would imagine when you think about interacting with a pro mixed martial arts fighter, somebody that legitimately, as you can describe their job as fighter. He is an understanding, gentle soul, and a very an easygoing guy. I don't think that's a shock for most people that know athletes. That athletes tend to gain an easygoing demeanor about them. But I think there are probably still some people out there that have a different idea of what mixed martial artists, or people that literally fight in a cage, what they're going to act like outside the cage. But the guy's a sweetheart. He's legitimately just an extremely sweet person that, and I say this with no reservation, he legitimately cares more about others than he does himself. And I don't know if that's, a claim that he would just go advertising from the hilltops, but I'm claiming it for him because you live long enough, and he and I are the same age, oddly enough, but you live long enough, you can see it in other people. You can see when someone's genuinely invested in the people around them, or whether they're just using them as a platform. Kevin is in no way using people as a platform. So very, very cool episode. Very fun. Kevin is currently a coach at Rabati, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. That's where I train. That's where I've been training Muay Thai. I've learned more there than I ever thought I could. I've definitely found a brotherhood there and sisterhood. I've found a place where I belong, and I think that's in no small part to Kevin's maintenance and cultivating of the culture there. So very fun conversation in that regard. This episode is brought to you by Tacticalories. Tacticalories is a seasoning company, but not just seasoning. If you watch on social media recently, I just did a review of their Violent Hippie hot sauce. It's a hot sauce with toasted coconut. Oh my God, that stuff is good. It's become a staple for me. I talked a lot about it in the video, but the fact that they are able to use toasted coconut and the little bit of coconut oil, the little bit of texture that you get from that adds a ton to the mouthfeel of that sauce, and it gives it flavor. And we've talked, everybody talks about, that you don't like hot sauce that's just hot with no flavor. This is not it. Like, it's hot, it's fiery, don't get me wrong. It's at the upper end of my personal white boy scale, but it has flavor to it, and it makes me want to add it to things. Throw it on eggs. Sure. Dude, that's my go-to in the morning. That's awesome. But they've also run a ton of awesome gift packages for the holidays. These are gifts. Look, if you're a badass, in terms of your grill game, in terms of your cooking game, look, if you know who you are, I'm talking to you out there. If you know you're a badass, you need to have this stuff in your pantry. This is, they sell it in good-sized bags, so you're not going to be, using it all up in one session. I mean, if you do, more power to you. But, if you're grilling a big enough piece of meat, then you better. But, if you are just somebody that likes to have good flavor combinations around, you know what you like, and you've made your own rubs before, but you know what goes into a good rub. You don't need gimmicks and stuff like that. You just need good ingredients. Dude, Tacticalories is the way to go. You go to tacticalories.com. If you use the code THROW, because, hey, I'm a thrower, right? Uh-oh, my phone's talking to me. If you use the code THROW, I was a thrower, maybe still am, I don't know, but use code THROW, you'll get 10% off everything at Tacticalories. Tacticalories is the way to eat, man. I can't throw a slab of meat on the grill without at least sprinkling something. Like, baseline, a salt and pepper. Like, get that one. If you're going to get nothing else, that is a great way to flavor up any hunk of meat. Go for that. All right, so without further ado, let's talk to Kevin Troyer.
Give up now, leave me be. It's a crime of the century. And if you give up what you know.
That I don't sound like what I think I sound like, because like my recorded voice, I hate it. It's like, what am I, a Muppet? Like, I can't stand it. And then, but she tells me, like, I promise you don't sound like that in real life. I'm like, maybe you're lying to me,
right?
But okay, I can totally live with that.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, if you bang the table like that, it'll reverberate a little bit. I don't really care that much. Like, yes, it's not like people aren't listening because of the high sound fidelity. Like, right. It's, if it's
see what they're using.
Right. It's like, I don't like the content of this podcast, but I just love the sound quality. Nobody said that ever. Nobody's into that. So, All right. So what I was curious about, and the reason this came up is, like, I've been wanting to do, just because you've been literally there for, like, my journey into Muay Thai, like my exploring it, really getting into it, committing to it, and you've been there all along. And I kind of wanted to do this broader episode just on Muay Thai and my experience in it. And it synced up really well. It's like, well, this is, you're somebody that has already been down the road that I'm going down right now.
Yes, sir.
Like, you've lived it, and you've taken a lot of different directions. You've integrated it into being a fighter. I know that Jess, your girlfriend, she's also a fighter, right?
Yes, sir. Muay Thai, and she's so basically she's done one amateur Muay Thai fight. It was her very first one, so she didn't get the luxury of smokers until later.
That's rough, man.
So it was kind of flip-flopped, and as much as it might sound biased, like, I watched the fight, it was 1-1 going into the third round, and it could have been super close. Like, you could judge it however. I think she won by simply just outpointing her just enough, right? But it was the hometown girl, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, She essentially took the loss a little bit harder than I imagined. I was just like, oh, you did great. I didn't know how she handled losses, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, what I'm getting at is that she learned it backwards. So when she was going to the smokers, she was putting more pressure on herself than that first amateur fight. Because, I mean, the first one, you have no expectations, right?
Right.
So you don't even know the caliber of what you're going into. It would be like, oh, my first fight was a UFC fight. And if you say that to someone like you or I, you'd be like, what?
Well, huh?
Like CM Punk, for example,
yeah.
right? You're like, what is going on? That's BS.
Right.
Because I've had to do, older people are like, we were fighting in bars, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But, I was taking, the $200 fights myself and $500 fights. And
yeah, and then
no dollar fights, right? Amateur fights,
Sure.
amateur fights, and then
no negative dollar fights.
Yeah,
'cause you
there
paid
you
for
go.
all your own stuff and all your own camp
That's
and
a good way to
everything.
put it.
Yeah, they're negative.
yeah,
you're
when
paying to
you're
fight.
going to work, full-time job, then training just to make it to your negative
Oh, being
dollar
an
fights.
amateur in any sport is paying to do it.
Yeah.
That's 100%.
So basically, I mean, not to go off on a tangent, but yeah, she had to learn in the reverse order, right? So there's her own little hurdles to get over, and then she had her second smoker, and it was all smiles, and everything was great. But yeah, she just had her first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament.
Nice, I saw that.
So she's a lifelong martial artist, but not in the sense of the person that goes in there and is like, man, I'm going to get better today.
Yeah.
And that's another tangent I can go off on. That's an artistic mind that I am not. I am very, regimented, structured, very, I mean, heck, you can even judge off the classes that you come into.
Absolutely.
Right? You see the cadence of it, the foundation, the consistency of something.
There's a plan. You're not making it up as you go.
Exactly. And so she's never came in as like, man, I'm really having a hard time with this submission or this technique. I'm going to practice it until I get it down. It's like, oh, I'm just here and on and off and on and off. But, she's been doing jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai longer than I have, if you want to count from start date to now, But now, since I am that guy that's every day, all the time, I would say I have more hours now.
Sure.
Because that's just me. I'm like, no, I'm going to, if I can train, I'm going to train. I'm going to collect those hours and reps and stuff. And,
yeah,
so,
and you got to think about that. Like you were, Faraz Zahabi just was talking about this the other day, that if you're training multiple disciplines, especially, and he actually was talking specifically about jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, like improving both of those is like you have to do both full bore if you want to truly master them.
Yeah.
And you can't say like, okay, instead of doing, an hour of jiu-jitsu and an hour of Muay Thai, I do a half of each.
Yeah.
Like by the end of the year, if everybody else has gotten 200 hours in, you've only gotten 100 hours in.
Yeah.
So you have to do 200 hours of each to
sir.
really master if you're going to do it. And I think you're right. That does require that. So I want to go back though, because I think that's really interesting because you talked about Jess having a more artistic mindset.
Yeah.
And I've really put some thought into that too before. We call this the martial arts.
Yeah.
And the word art is in there. So it's unusual to me because it really is. I kind of have a foot in both worlds, I guess. Like I've been a creative person, but I've had to be in the business world and learn the value of regiment and discipline. And being an athlete taught me that more than anything else. But that idea that martial arts is very cool to me, that it really is, like Bruce Lee said, like it's the art of expressing the human body.
Yeah.
You get to express yourself in a way. And I guess I get where she's coming from in that. But,
of course.
Yeah, I mean, do you see a difference in the way, like I guess not obviously the way you guys train is going to be different, but how does that play out differently when it's time to actually execute? Do you think you have a different approach to a fight than she would have because of that?
Big time. Yeah, so there's a couple of things I'm trying to hold on to and not forget about. So you did ask about her being a fighter, and I wasn't trying to take away from her being a fighter. I was just kind of saying, I jumped in, and it was little by little, and I mean, I didn't even think about fighting until I was a purple belt because I'm very self-competitive, and I'll get into the whole story behind that later if we get there. But She is a fighter, but she's not going like, this is my only thing,
right.
Because it's more of the artist. And I think the day in and day out and grind will almost crush the artist within.
That's a good
right?
point. That's a good point.
So that's kind of, I just wanted to answer the question that you asked, like, oh, is she a fighter? Yeah, so she's been dabbling in the competition, but she's a martial artist and on the artist side, way on the artist side of the spectrum.
Well, I get that. That probably describes me a little better, honestly, because the at the era in life or where you are in life, it's like you may care about more the expression and the art and the enjoyment of it than you do the discipline. But I mean, so you're a dude that has fought amateur and has fought pro though. So you've almost maybe you have had to punch a time clock a little bit more.
Big time. But that's kind of where that part was the easy part for me. So the expression and getting away from the perfection part was the hard part, learning the artistic side. And now, like, I'm older and on this side of it, man, I would have like hours of conversation of like what you just said about the martial art.
Yeah.
That is the best of both worlds in one world, if you think about it. You have your martial, your structure. It's being an artist within guidelines.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing, because if you take an artist and just leave them out there, they don't have a foundation and they don't have a destination.
Sure.
So they're floating.
Yeah.
Right? The martial part will, hey, you can do that, but just like the bumpers in bowling, it's like, no, you can hit that, no, but now you're getting back on your lane, bong, bong, but you still get to the end of the lane.
Right. And in the same vein, like, learn the rules before you break them.
Yeah.
Like, be a master of the rules before you break them. I like that. And I think a lot of times if I'm not thinking about it wrong, I think sometimes what's beautiful about the martial arts is that the controlling factor can be the opponent. That, you can have a wide range of expression. You can move however you want to move. Like, we see lots of martial arts that have incredible movement, but the opponent is a limiting factor and a cap on that, because is it going to work in the face of an opponent?
Yes, sir.
Like, what's actually going to be functional? And that's, kind of tying it back to Muay Thai. That's what I love about this art, that it's beautiful, it's artistic, it has a flow, it's incredible movement, but it's super effective in the face of an opponent. Yeah. And that's such a rare and wonderful thing in the world of martial arts. It doesn't always.
Yeah, I would say due to the simplicity of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you really break it down, it's all about the reps. So you have to get the reps in to express yourself to the fullest, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, that's pretty awesome. Now back to the question, you say up to the approach to the fights, right? Sure. So yeah, now I mean the work has to be done no matter how you cut it, right? The work has to be done. So in that way, we train the same because you have to get your work in.
Right.
But I mean, each individual is different. So definitely, if it took me out of the picture, if someone was going to coach me and that same person was going to coach her, it would have to be completely different.
Yeah, I can see that.
And now, of course, it's in the odd place that I am, I would be her coach, right? And especially in the jiu-jitsu world, especially, which I got to experience in her first tournament. Yeah. But the whole thing.
How is that? How's coaching your significant other?
It's wild ride. It's a wild ride. So, the way I would be able to express it is simply, I've been on both sides of the cage and now put that extra factor of that's a loved one, not just a student. So you're like, oh man, now like that's where a worry comes in, like, like you're just like, man, and worried about her post outcome, how's she going to handle it?
Because you're going to be there for it.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff. So it's just a wild ride in itself. It's hard to explain. I mean, because I think I painted the picture well enough. Like, if you put yourself in my shoes, you're like, whoa.
Right.
Coach, boyfriend of 6 years, all of that stuff. And you're just like, okay, she's going to compete. You have to learn how to control your emotions, say the right things, be cool, calm, and collective, and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, and I've had the either the joy or the pain of coaching, loved ones or, a significant other, anything like that. And it's sort of like there really is like a code you have to switch between one or the other. Like there's language that like my wife and I actually use with each other on day-to-day basis that has meanings and carries weight and she can read signs that I'm dissatisfied or I can read in the sheet.
Yes, sir.
You can't use that same language in the coaching sphere. You have to separate. Like, you can't be boyfriend, you can't be husband, and that's really hard to do.
Yes, sir.
And it's really hard to coach. I've only done it from the man to woman perspective, but especially that can be dangerous territory when you're a man coaching his wife or girlfriend.
Yeah.
Is that you can't use the same code, the same language, and everything. You have to be more neutral, and it's hard, dude.
Yes, sir.
Because you'll just shut somebody down. If
Yeah.
they feel like, oh, my boyfriend's pissed at me because I'm not doing what he. Like the way that he likes or something. Like,
yes, sir.
You'll shut them down. They won't work that way.
Well, I mean, that has to be the reason behind how rare it is, right? I mean, how many fights have you seen in your time, right? And whatever, it doesn't matter, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, and the specifics, and then, of course, MMA.
Yeah.
I think there's like one or two couples, right, where the wife is the coach or vice versa.
Yeah.
You know, Gilbert Melendez might be one.
Yeah.
His wife fights Muay Thai. He's a cornerman.
Mike Perry had his girl in his corner for a lot of fights.
There you go.
Yeah.
But think about it. When you watch that fight and the Rogans or whoever bring it up, tell me your mind doesn't go there just as much as watching the fight.
Yeah.
Especially when it's in the corner. Like,
it's like
remember
smashing walls
Smiling
together.
Sam Alvey?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an odd reference, but you hear his wife screaming at him, and then you hear her giving him pointers in the corner, and you're just like,
I don't know how.
yeah, all you do is put yourself in that circumstance. It's like, how would I handle that? Could I even do it? And it's pretty crazy.
Well, and there's that pride issue as a man too. Like, if you're getting your ass beat, like, how do you move past that? Like, hey, my wife's watching me get my ass beat. I guess again, like, it's never been my job either. So I guess that's a different deal.
I do get a little practice. I really do. She is technically my Muay Thai student.
Right.
She does. Excuse me. I just she does participate in all the classes, but she was there at Team Her Body before me. She was a helper and an assistant coach and all that stuff. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, like I'm telling you, man, she's been doing Muay Thai 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
So maybe even longer, and I've only been doing it for turn of the year would be 12.
Wow. Just 12 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about the people I'm following. Robbie's
Sure.
been doing it 22 years,
Right.
or 20 years, and then his coach, the guy who spars with us on the weekends, I just asked him again. One of my striking coaches, he's at 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, and then I just made a joke. I was like, oh, hey, Wilson, you're gonna go with him. He, he's been doing it for 25 years, so he sucks. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah. So, but the whole coaching thing, it is definitely a wild ride. But the fact that you do know that person better than
Sure.
anyone else would, you get to you get to learn how to play your cards.
Yeah.
So instead of like going out there and saying, hey, go do this, and if she does that, do this, play by play. It's like, no. I'm like, this is where you shine. Mm-hmm. Go out there and enjoy the moment. Don't worry about anything else, because you excel in the transitional phases. Like, that's where she does. Like, give her a blank canvas, she's going to give you an artwork. She's
like
not
that.
a piece of art. Give me a blank canvas, it's going to stay
Right.
blank. But if you drew something on there, say the match, I will make it better.
Huh.
And I've recently discovered that, and it's like, man, maybe this whole coaching thing maybe was meant to be. It really was, because I've always was that guy that I would look at something and I'm like, man, what if you did this? I think it would be better.
Yeah.
Always. Not to be a judgmental anything, but
No,
that's just my eye. And it'd be
it's
like,
an eye for optimization is what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it can be better. And I'm not an artist, right? But she will ask me like, what is this picture missing or that? And I'm like, I don't know. But then if I look at it long enough, and if I look at a reference, like, oh, check it out. You just need to, come in a little more. What about this detail? And it, she does it, and it's better.
Yeah.
So like, I'm gonna be able to teach a day one student, yes, I am. But until you throw the punch, I won't know what I'm working with.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So I couldn't teach you how to throw a beautiful punch if you couldn't move your arm. Maybe I could do it, but if you throw that punch already, I can be like, okay, elbow in from the shoulder, turn it over, and now you have a better punch.
Yes, 100%. And that to me, that is a gift. And I think a lot of people don't, until you and I are about the same age. And I don't think it takes a long time for you to realize that that's one of those things where you see the world a little different. And you don't realize that because it's just the way you see the world.
Exactly.
But you don't realize not everybody has that vision. I remember in college when I met my wife, like she's brilliant, especially in terms of science, biology. She works in healthcare, and she's brilliant. And I remember hearing her talk about something in one of her organic chemistry classes or something. And she was talking about a way a molecule looked or something like that. And I realized, looking at her, this always sticks out to me, this memory. And I said to her, you can see that, can't you? Like, you can visualize that in your mind and see it.
Yeah.
Like how that works. And she said, yeah. I said, I can't. Like, I hear the words, and I can kind of schematically and think about like what you're saying, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see it that way. And I realize that's just like what you're talking about with coaching. I coach throwers, and that was sort of the thing that I realized after a while is like, even if you're not the greatest athlete, you're not the greatest fighter, you're not the greatest thrower, you're not the greatest anything, that doesn't mean you don't have that gift for optimization, for seeing movement that way.
Yes, sir.
And understanding that, I think exactly what you're saying is super important, especially in the martial arts, because movement and precision is really a huge part of it when you start, again, adding an opponent into the mix.
Yes, sir.
Like, a lot of times it's all things being equal, the person that, all things, strength conditioning, years of training, all things being equal, the person that's got better technique and has more precision is probably going to take it.
Yes,
It's probably
sir.
going to win the exchange.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and
9
it's so
times out of 10.
and
for sure.
and it's totally a gift, and I get that, and it's really fun when you get to where you are to get to pass that on to people.
Yeah, I mean, and this is now like, I would almost say the day I got my job was the first day of the rest of my life, in that sense, and it helped me discover that kind of stuff. And I mean, through fighting, I've discovered so much more. Like, I didn't know I had an eye to make things better until like 18 months ago. And in the sense of like, I think I have a knack for making everything better. Like, like if you give me a car body type, and it might be, it could be biased, right? But I have a feeling like, well, what if you did this little adjustment? It would be universal, because I don't try to look at it selfishly.
Yeah.
I just have to use my experience and what I would look. But it's like, if I do correct a jiu-jitsu move in that role, right? But hey, check this out. When he does this, you do this instead of that. I could take that and almost place it with a Tim Patton, people that a Jason Wilson, and it would be the same. Like, this armbar will be better for you, and you if you make this same adjustment in this position.
Right, because we all got the same number of limbs.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I'm telling you, it was another. I mean, it's like almost like a revelation, right, or an epiphany, however you want to explain it. It's like, whoa. So now I try to do it a lot, as much as I can, flex that strength.
Yeah.
I mean, I get practice obviously every day, teaching Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and all that. But it's like outside of there is where I practice.
Yeah.
If it's whatever, training my dogs on the bike ride,
Right.
I mean, anything. I'm a pretty much a maniac in my thoughts. Like, your Danahers and your Coach Kavanaughs. I'm talking about people that are just all the way in what they do. Mine, I take that, like, take the Danahers, like, he specializes kind of in the body. In the martial art world, it's like, no, if you land here, you'll have this different angle and all that. He almost looks at it from a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
But I take that portion, so it's I'm all the way in, but I use it in a broader range.
Sure.
And I'm talking, guys, I feel so silly, but from how I'm brushing my teeth,
Sure.
How I pick up my bicycle to give the dogs a bike ride.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I'm a maniac in that thought. So what can I do to make this better and more efficient?
And
it's wild.
Well, and I think it's really funny. The two things that you mentioned are they're movement based things, though.
Yeah.
Like, you've lived the life of a martial artist and now a coach for how many years? I mean,
the journey started, like I said, I can give you the date, January 17th of 12 years ago, in turn of the year.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just not shocking that you're now, like, you're more apt to look at things where you're moving your body in space and manipulating things like, hey, you know what, there's a better way to do that.
Yeah.
And almost being like, a little bit obsessive about it.
Yeah.
And that's also, I think that's maybe a symptom of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it is. And and of course the coaching combined, right? You put them together, and that's a cocktail for that, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I've lived a lifetime before that. I was a BMXer for 12 to 15 years before I touched the mats.
I love that, man, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the podcast is that you are that difference in the things that you were pursuing to go from that. So tell me about how do you even start? Because I was never a BMX kid. I was never a bike racing kid. I was never really into that. How does that even come up? How do you get into that to where you're racing for real?
Well, I mean, correction there, not racing. So BMX, I was more, if you labeled it, it'd be more freestyle oriented.
I got you. Which is even cooler.
Yeah. So, but if you broke it down, it was like, well, because just like, how would I break it down? Yeah, you could break it down. Jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I prefer gi over no gi, but there's both jiu-jitsus, right? You. So I ride a bicycle, right? But I don't race. I don't ride vert, but I rode ramps and I rode dirt jumps, right?
I got you.
And sprinkle a little bit of street riding in there. Okay. You see how it kind of branches off, right?
Yeah.
But the whole how it was, I mean, that's an easy question. How'd I end up on bicycle? Because I was born on two wheels. I mean, I'm a small town. I'll call me a hillbilly family in the sense of we all rode four-wheelers and snowmobiles because I lived in a place where it snowed.
Nice. Where at?
I'll call it Nowhere, Indiana. So small.
So small
town. Yeah. The town's name is Plymouth. The one that most people would recognize is South Bend due to Notre Dame, right? Yeah. The college football team. Probably one of the only reasons that I ever go to Indiana, and it's only because you're a sports fan. Like Indiana.
Now you said ATVs, so I got to ask you this: did you ever ride three-wheelers, or did you have four-wheelers?
So we, four-wheelers always. Like when, and you get almost prejudiced in ways, like because honestly, three-wheelers were more death traps.
They were. So my brother and I had those.
Yeah, have you ever put your foot down and ran over your ankle?
Just a quick diversion here. The reason I ask is like my parents gave me one.
Okay.
Again, we're the same hillbilly stock here, I promise. Like my parents came into a little money, whatever, never managed it well. But like of course, this story will highlight that. We had some land out in the country, and they got us three-wheelers. They got me one when I was 6 years old.
Oh, man. Yeah.
6 years old. The age of my middle daughter, 6 years old, they got me a three-wheeler. And they sent me and my brother out, who was like 13 or something. They sent us out into the 8 acres. Go ride, have fun. First day, I rolled that thing over, pinned myself under it, stuck out in the woods for like 2 hours because my brother just zoomed off without me because he's an asshole older brother.
Man, yeah. Just classic, right?
I screamed till my voice went hoarse under that thing. And then my brother came back and he was in so much trouble. That made it worth it almost because my brother got in so much trouble. But that's why I asked. Like, I just want to know if anybody else had those death traps besides me.
Yeah. So I mean, if the only way we had three-wheelers is someone else, and we just rode it, and it was simple as that. Like the one time you instinctually put your foot down, it's like, oh yeah, I'm never gonna ride this again because it's 2 or 4 and equal balance, right?
Right. That third wheel is not doing it.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So I mean. That part was easy, and the funny offshoot to that would be is my dad and all my cousins raced dirt bikes. It was motocross and hare scrambles, which is racing through the woods and stuff. Yeah. Basically for an amount of time, and you make your laps in, right? Yeah, motocross is what you see on TV. You just jumps in a circle, and how many ever laps, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, they all did that, and I'm of course I got my. I was 8 years old when I got my first. It was called, we called them Zingers, but Yamaha used to make little 50s, which are automatic motorcycles, no gear shifting. So 6, 7, 8 years old, you can ride them as long as you can keep your balance, right?
Right.
So I got that and learned how to ride it, and then I, keep going up because the older I got a 60. But tried to racing, and honestly, Mike, I was a big wuss. I was so scared. My dad, I can recount so many times where my dad would have to run out there and help me pick up the bike or start it for me and stuff like that. And then in the motocross world, I mean, we all start at the same time. And I was the kid where everyone's gone. I'm like,
is it time?
Yeah. So I downgraded to bicycles because this is less scary. It's not attached to a motor.
Yeah. No,
I'm more in charge. And then, that I took that and ran with it, man. I fell in love with that, and really it was like during that time I was a nomad, and it was like, I traveled with my dad to race motorcycles and stuff like that, and then end up with moving with my mom, blah blah blah. But fast forward until I'm about 16, 17, where I'm in a semi-permanent fixture, which is Plymouth, Indiana.
Okay.
And I met these older kids that rode bicycles, and end up going to their house, and they have like the jumps that you see on TV. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. To where like I was scared to just get to the top of it, that kind of stuff. Right. But then one of the guys in our town was really into BMX. Like he was already a professional rider, and he started building a box jump. And next thing I was like, hey man, my dad owns this parking lot. We're gonna split it. We have a skate park. So nice. I got to be almost raised at a skate park, like 17, the punk era of, the teens. And I was stayed at the skate park more than I stayed at my house, through 17 through 20 or whatever.
Right. To keep you out of trouble or get you in more trouble?
It was a little bit of both. I would say just like we know, it's like everyone needs a path and everyone needs a vehicle through life. Mm-hmm. And that's like what everyone says once they figure it out. It's like, this is what got me out of the drinking or wherever I was about to go, straighten me up. And it's either extreme as the military or something as tennis. All it is a passion. It doesn't matter, right? But basically, I was raised on the bicycle, and then you're 40 years old. How many groups of friends have you went through? Right?
Yeah.
Right?
So all the waves, right? Anymore.
Waves of life. And the people that got me into BMX and almost being drug-free decided to flip that all on its head. And it's like,
also,
we're going to...
I'm 39, asshole.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said you were having the... My bad.
Stop the fire back there.
Gotcha. So we're really just like about a year apart. A little less, right?
Yeah.
December you?
Yeah.
And I'm September, so...
Yeah, my joints are like 55.
Gotcha.
But
my BMX joints are under there for sure.
In the same era.
But they flipped all that on their heads. It's like, one pregnancy after another, and like, I never drank, so I'm gonna be an alcoholic overnight, and just have these kids that I can't take care of, and you're just like, oh God, well I still love riding my bicycle. This is awesome, Right? So fast forward to about 2021, I realized that there's no longer anything here for me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good on a bicycle, right? Yeah. This time I'm decent, So moved to Texas with, all right, I turn in on my library cards and my movie rental cards. Have $600.
For all my listeners under 39, there used to be places where you could go and rent movies.
Yeah,
a card.
Yeah, Blockbuster, all that. Yeah, canceled that account so no one else could reopen it. Nice. My Chevy Beretta crammed to the ceiling and $600. And the new group of friends that did what I still loved, and like they were on this way. Like the side story to that is like I met those guys, and they were doing what I did, and we went on road trips to Indianapolis and go road again like I did, and it's like, man, this is still what I love to do. And the guys are like, we're gonna move to Austin, which is the mecca of BMX. And then the 3 months prior to moving, that's all I watched was like this one video that highlighted Austin, that like this is that spot, I'm gonna go at that spot when I get there.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, just like now, if you watch, MMA, like, oh man, if I'm in Arizona or Albuquerque, New Mexico, I'm going to go see Jackson Wink. Or if I'm in Florida, I'm going to go see this, right? Yep. That's exactly how I was during that time, 20, 21, 22, 23, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Then I moved here at 21 years old. I think I might have been 22. I always get that year messed up. It doesn't matter.
You're a kid, basically.
Yeah, but it was just only riding. I found a job that I could work as little as possible. Walmart, stocking shelves, right? 3 days a week,
nice.
Paying $300-400 a month to live, and just rode as much as I possibly could. Ended up picking up a sponsorship, ended up doing my first professional contest, all that stuff, getting second place, winning money, going on road trips. It was nice, awesome, man. It was
living the dream as a young man.
That was my first love, that was my first passion. I always have a place in my heart. BMX will.
Yeah.
And without BMX, I wouldn't be here today, period, But yes, so, fast forward really to that, like I broke my foot on something that I've, done many a times, but it derailed my confidence, right? During the foot break, I meet the guy who got me into jiu-jitsu, one of my friends that rode BMX with me, right?
Yeah.
What
year is this?
So that had to be probably 05 so 05 would be the year before I started martial arts, right? Yeah. So a group of my friends that I rode with, and did those road trips with and all that, well, like, they were in between houses, and they stayed at my house. And he's like, dude, check this out. And he showed me Shogun versus Rampage 1, the buckling over the ribs.
Yeah.
And the first time, Mike, I was like, wait, can you show me that again?
Right. That's everybody's first response.
Boom, right? So I'm just getting, I'm recovering. I've had a broken foot and blah, blah, blah. And one time when I could walk again and all that stuff and was riding again, we were wrestling around. And I'm like, man, I'll try it. And he's like, okay, do it. And I'm like, all right, let me get my finances and correct, and I'll try.
Yeah.
So 26 years old, New Year turns, and he calls me out because I was half-assing that, more just to leave me alone. But I am kind of a man of my word, and I had a little bit of an interest. Mm-hmm. But we're talking, I had 6 to 8 months of renting every UFC that I've never seen. Like, we're talking, dude, I was all in, Mike. Yeah, just flipped it on its head. I fell in love. I went to the place where you can rent videos and VHSs, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna start number 1 through 10 UFC, rent them while I was healing on my foot broken.
Nice.
Right, and then 10 through 20. And it turns out they stop at 25, and then it's like turning the DVDs and all that. So there's 25 through 50. I'm still like scattered of UFCs.
Yeah,
I really am. But 51 or 52 was Babalu versus Chuck Liddell, and I've seen every UFC since then.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were really all in.
I was all in, Mike, and it was wild because there was about 2 years where I was riding bicycles and training. And 25, 26, 27 years old, your body starts to say, "Hey, pick one, motherfucker.
Let's pick one. Let's pick a path quick."
So, and the transition of that was the fact that it was the minor adjustments made the biggest of the importance, right? And that's how I made the transition and then my submissions were the tricks.
You learn it. I like that.
Yeah, and it was very easy transition. I would have that with my BMX friends, that conversation. Like, dude, you know how you if you lean out on this trick, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
That little adjustment is the difference between pulling an armbar and blowing an armbar.
Huh. And that's cool.
That would, if anything, maybe that's my very small artistic mind transition to that.
Yeah.
So
that makes total sense.
So
and
26 years old, started jiu-jitsu.
The first thing that pops out to me too is there's still a danger component.
Of course, that adrenaline rush.
You have that in BMX for sure.
Big time.
Maybe it's a little more control when you first start jiu-jitsu when you're white belt style, but. There's physical danger, there's conflict, and it kind of hits all those buttons. And
all of them.
Dude, I dig that a lot. And I'll tell you why I dig that idea of you being able to take, kind of transpose that idea of positioning and leverage, is because my background, I'm a thrower, but I played baseball growing up, and then I got into the ridiculous Highland Games sport later on. But I trained as a thrower and throwing for a long time.
Which I'm curious about, by the way, because I'm like. I have nothing to know about anything about that.
It's from another planet. It's like a loophole in the world of athletics, is that you can find a sport to tour around the world and make money for wearing a kilt and throwing rocks and sticks. It's stupid. Yep. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, fun though, right?
Oh, it was a blast. And, but taking all that, I've always been able to throw things. I've always had that. I can move my body to do that, and that's transferred to lifting weights and all that kind of stuff. And when I started taking the classes at Robati, it didn't take long till I could find the carryover. I could find how much we talk about pivoting on our feet, how much we talk about our hips, how much we talk about creating separation and force and disassociating shoulders from hips to create things I know this. And I even went so far as to make a joke with a buddy of mine that's also a thrower that started hitting the bag, and he sends me videos how does this look? And I was it looks terrible, Mike. If he's listening to this, by the way, he looks terrible. But
You'll get better, Mike.
But he was a collegiate thrower, and I make those connections with him. I say, there's a reason they call it throwing hands, right? Mm-hmm. Literally, that's what we're doing. You're turning this hand into a projectile. Mm-hmm. Is what you're doing. So same principles apply. If you're going to throw something out there, you're not going to paw it out. You're not going to keep your weight all back, and you're going to transfer. So that spoke to me because of that transfer of skill and passion and what you're into, and that's really cool. So but you're just coming in white belt.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Had you fucked around with people like at your house, your roommates, and like tried it, or did you just go in and hit the mats?
No, so yeah, I mean, if you want to count the one time that that probably he was drunk and I wasn't, and we were wrestling, and he tried. The only reason I even knew it was an armbar, and I did the old big man him and shook him off,
right?
And I only know that because I know it now. But then I was like, this guy's just grabbing me. I'm gonna get him off of me, right?
Sure.
But that would be that, and then my other friend, which was the first person I met in Austin, Texas. So wild how a handful of us BMXers, like, we didn't see each other for a while, and then when we did see each other, we're all doing kind of the same thing again. Different parts, definitely different areas, but like, whoa, we're all doing martial arts.
There's got to be a shared mentality there.
Yeah. So, but I mean, honestly, it was a dry run. Like, okay.
Right.
He showed me what an Americana was, and the other guy, he's like, yeah, just come with me and don't worry about it.
Nice.
And that was it. So, and then so it began. I went and tried one martial art down. So when I started, Mike, there was only two essential martial arts schools that mattered, and it was jiu-jitsu schools, because martial arts is hard because Taekwondo is a martial art,
sure.
Karate. So jiu-jitsu schools, we'll say. The South one was a Helston Gracie black belt, I believe, Phil Cardella. And then up north, his name was William Vandry. He was a Machado affiliate. And but when it came to the knowledge, because those were the only two black belts in Texas teaching jiu-jitsu at the time.
Man.
So, and this is stuff that, is way cooler now knowing it. It's like, oh, okay, it makes sense why I ended up there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now talk about mindset. My first class was down south, 7 minutes away, very close and convenient, but he taught standing guillotines and guard passing in the same class. So in my mind, it doesn't tie together, right? See how you just looked at it that way?
Right.
That's how I look at it now. And even then, I had a little bit, I was like, what? Okay. And I go to the next class 2 or 3 days later, 20 minutes away, 22 minutes away. And it's like, okay, we all do the same stretches. We all introduce each other to each other, ourselves to each other, I mean. And we all sit down, learn the same technique. We drill that technique, and then we train at the end, called rolling, right? And I'm like, well, that structure, like, yeah, I signed up day of.
Yep.
Because that's the struck a chord of the structure that I've almost craved.
So all of a sudden you're driving a lot further to go to
Doing
class.
25 minutes every day for 5 years.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy? There's so many, I've written about this and talked about it a good bit, is that the longer you play sports, the longer you do, whether any activity really where you have to achieve and learn and improve, but especially in sports, I've seen it, and it became more apparent in coaching, is that the way you structure a practice, when you really strip away all the details, when practice is done right, it pretty much looks the same in every sport.
Yeah.
And that you warm up together, you get moving, you get heart rate up, you get blood flowing together. Then you break down into drills, into the minute details. You work on the minute details. Then you get those, you package them together into variations or partials, or scenarios. And then after that, you put it all together, but not quite at full speed. Every baseball practice I ever had was like that. Every football practice, every throwing practice, every practice at school at Urbati has been that way. Yes, and I've noticed, like, when I coach my kids' t-ball or my baseball, there's baseball teams now, and like, the soccer, any soccer coach is good. Like it's all the same. There's this code. I've called it the practice code, that everybody that is a coach worth their salt falls into, whether they realize it or not, because it works. Yeah. And so that's why, just like you said, I was completely mystified by, like, why would you work on a standing guillotine and then guard pass in the same day? What are we stringing together? If you can show me how I move from there to there, okay, maybe you got to give a coach a benefit of the doubt. Maybe there's something brilliant that they're going to show you in between, but didn't sound like in that case, man.
Yeah. And that's not, I mean, to each his own. I mean, if he's successful, like he obviously got his black belt and he's carrying on, he got there. Sure. So,
but just because you're great at something doesn't mean you're a great coach.
Exactly. And that's something that's tremendous and that I can speak very confidently on,
My buddy Matt, my business partner, he's fond of saying, like, I don't want Usain Bolt to be my sprinting coach.
Yeah.
Because maybe he's good. I don't know. It's just an example, though. But his coaching might just be, well, just go faster. That's what I did. just go faster than everybody. Oh,
Yeah.
But being high level doesn't mean, and that's why, I mean, honestly, guys in the world of sports like you and I that are not the top level guys. We're not famous. We're not talking to each other because we're famous for fighting or for throwing or anything like that. But that's why you can make an impact coaching, because you happen to have that, that code, and you have what you talk about where you can visualize things, you can see process improvement. So
yes, sir.
that's it always sticks out to me because. Yeah, again, that's another athlete, another person that has that exact same experience. Like that code speaks to you as an athlete.
Yes,
it's
sir.
Like, this makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Like I can piece this stuff together.
And honestly, I would say that's why, and that was probably my missing piece in the BMX world.
Really?
Because now that the BMX world is the world of artists, and there's like a rebellious side, right? We all know that, and probably part of why we were drawn to it at a young age, right? And we don't have to what's the word I'm looking for? Fall into the conformity of team sports,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That because we didn't like it. It's like, no, it's too structured. I want to go and do it. I'll ride every day, but I want to ride on my own terms, and I want to go to my own spots and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But to a certain point, I, like when it ever came to getting a group of people together to go to the same spot at the same time, it's like pulling teeth, man.
Yeah.
Because no, I woke up at noon today. I don't want to, I woke up at 3:30 in the afternoon. No, I want to go ride this spot, not that spot you guys are talking about.
And so I'm sure, like anything else, the guys that introduce a little discipline are the guys that get on the pro circuit, right? I mean, that's usually what happens. Or just super talented.
Yeah, well, both. Because like the talent will take them there, but it's like, oh wait, I have to perform like this consistently. Well, then you talk to those guys. Yeah, I picked up yoga. I just don't talk about it. Or I picked up. Yeah, I have a strength and conditioning coach, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You can never replicate the fight, right? But we do our best to replicate that fight. Cardio wise, the punching, the scenarios. Well, the same thing. You can't replicate an X Games run all the time.
Sure.
The world is watching. The pressure that you put on yourself to perform, you can't replicate that in a skate park that you go to every day.
Do you think that culture's changing in extreme sports broadly?
I guarantee
now cool
once you
train?
Because all the top athletes will say, yeah, I had to start picking up a strength and conditioning coach so my lungs could last through. We have multiple runs to perform the same thing.
Yeah, I remember watching, and this is it's not my wheelhouse, but I just remember watching a YouTube video a long time ago. It was Travis Pastrana. Like, it was old tape, but it was him like in his yard. He'd built out ramp stuff, and he was doing that stuff we were talking about. He was breaking down particulars. He was like hand and foot position, head position, spine, and then he would do partials of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's practice, man. That's not just hanging out and trying to hit tricks. He's practicing.
And you have to, and they literally had to build the form to practice that, right? Because, let's try the double flip for the first time on a 100-foot ramp. That's like unforgiving. No.
Right.
That's why it's like, we got here through foam pits. Right, and then they have the next level is called a resi box jump or a resi whatever, which is the foam with the hard plastic over it. So if you do crash, it's still going to hurt, but not if you crash on the real deal.
Right, it's a variation.
And by the time they get to the real deal, they've had thousands of reps, right? The 10,000 reps, they got it.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they're not in strange territory. It's really just managing your mind.
And that's where you and I don't know if you'd ever want to go this route, but everything is the same.
Yes. Yes.
Everything. The art of learning, right? You peel back the layers, it's like, oh yeah, it's the same. You break it down to its bare bones, and then you build it. My favorite analogy when I sign people up in jiu-jitsu or martial arts or in Muay Thai is like, hey, if I walked into my first Spanish class, am I speaking fluent Spanish? And they'll be like, no. I'm like, exactly. So how would I learn? I mean, you learn the alphabet, then you learn a couple words, you learn a short sentence, you learn a handful of sentences, and then you're speaking in paragraphs, and you build. If you look at
I've heard this speech before.
Single thing, every single thing, and that's like, for you, I would use a throwing, analogy over and over and over. There's baseball players. I'm like, oh, dude, I've used that analogy. Like, how they turn through the ball, like their hips, and if they miss the ball, most of the time they'll spin in a full circle, right?
Yeah.
So if you miss that target on kicking, you should spin in a full circle. Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Austin Fowler, who he is a police officer, and I'm like, so you know how you wouldn't pull the gun out and shoot. Like, no, you aim, you find your spot, your target first, right?
Yeah.
So I'll use your wheelhouse and bring it into my wheelhouse and something that can relate. But it's always, dude, it's all the same,
and it's
quite mind blowing. Where like,
music, art,
yes,
parenting, everything. Like,
it almost takes the surprise out of it,
there's
right?
No
it's like,
anymore.
there's no, the mystery. That's the word I was looking for. It's like, oh crap. So raising the kids, the same. It really is the same if you broke it down that way. If you break it, be objective about it. Obviously, like the love and the emotions and all that stuff is besides the point.
But the rewards, that's what you do it for, because you know that, like, everything that you do, like, you know that, yes, I'm going to have to grind enough to learn small stuff that doesn't make sense to me right now, but I know there's going to be a reward to this at some point.
Yes, sir.
And I think that is sometimes, we talked about talented people. I think sometimes that's it's hard to work with people that are talented sometimes. It's hard to coach talented people because...
Yeah, but the reason is always...
Yeah. Like, they're getting rewarded already because like, I can do things that other people can't, and they feel that reward. But you could, like, the idea is to show, like, no, if you break everything down, just like you talked about, if you just strip it down to bare bones and rebuild it, the rewards are going to get much bigger for you because of that talent that you have, because of the background you have. But yeah, working with smart and talented people is a difficult task.
Yeah, well, when it's lopsided, right? And that's why success is when hard work meets, talent, essentially, and that kind of stuff. So that the LeBron Jameses of the world, the Michael Jordans of the world, like the lessons are there. And it's like, no, or even Floyd Mayweather, some of the nets might be relatable, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, minus the shit talking, shit talking aside, it's like, what is he doing? Same thing that everyone else is doing.
But more so.
Yeah, you're
like,
doing
honestly,
it more.
Yeah, like we're talking about Floyd. The thing that was an eye-opener for me as I really started thinking about martial arts as a discipline was watching one of his workouts that his finisher is to throw 1,000 punches. Like, he finishes a lot of workouts by just throwing 1,000 punches. His team counts it out for him.
Yes, sir.
And there's no, like, grand plan. There's no, like, it's just throw 1,000 punches.
Yes, sir.
Every time he trains, he's throwing at least 1,000 punches. It's so dumb that it's smart. Like, it's just it's so simple that it's brilliant.
Yes, sir.
That you just, if I'm going to step into a ring under these bright lights and I have to fight the best in the world over and over again, I'm going to have thrown more punches than they have in my life. Like, wow.
Yes, sir.
So that's what it is. So
yes, sir.
Just every time you walk by the bag, kick it.
Yes, sir.
Just throw. Just get out there and move. That's a huge deal. So when you were coming up through the ranks in jiu-jitsu, this will be a fun question.
Yeah. Now we're starting life number 2.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Dude,
it's 2006.
Far from over, promise.
Yeah.
But did you feel like you had a knack or a talent, or did you just feel like this is something where I want to put my head down and dig?
No, so definitely didn't have a knack or talent. Because I've seen natural talent, and I was raised around young man sports, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
I mean, BMX is a young man sport, right into the next love and passion, which is MMA. It's a young man sport, right?
Sure.
Now more so than ever, and it will continue to be that way when
that's how it happens. When money gets involved.
Yeah, when money gets involved, it'll be, we always make the joke that, like, in Thailand you turn professional at 8 years old.
Legit,
but so in the Western world in MMA, there will be a point in time where now, I mean, there's already 16-year-old pro fighters. Yeah. Well, why not 15?
Look at Rory and Sage.
Exactly. Born into it, right? So that's going to happen. Now, to answer your question, definitely not a knack, but I am very self-competitive. I'm a very passionate person. So when I did it, I was like, oh, well, I'm all in. I fell in love. I signed up for the unlimited package day one, nice. And I was training 4 and 5 days a week, day one.
Wow.
Day one. So, and,
to be young again. Man.
Right. Well, I mean, I was 26, right? And so that's old in that world.
It is.
That's old. Like, man, I wish I started my, the parents say I wish I started my kids then. The adults that train, I wish I started then, right? Yeah. We all wish that. But I knew when I was getting into it, I was like, no, I'm just going to show up because I love it. My friends are here. And that was like, after about 18 months to 2 years, my body said, pick one. Right? Sure. Like I said, we're going referencing back to that. And I picked martial arts because that moment was that changed the trajectory of my life ultimately was that I broke my foot. I had a girlfriend at the time. We moved in, and I started my first real full-time job in construction, and it's like, okay, well, now I can ride bikes again, but not only am I scared as shit to do what I did every day of my life that came easy to me, but what's going to put food on the table?
Sure.
What is going to
Sure.
do that? And it wasn't, it was just a culmination of that. I was like, well, and then the nail in the coffin was, somebody said this, and I know he won't hear this because he's a BMX world, and his name is Joe Rich, and he said, if you don't love it, there's no longer a point of doing it. And the fear took the love out of the BMX. And what happened is that I was starting to fall in love with martial arts. Through that. It's well, because I'm scared of this. I'm not scared of this. And all those buttons that you touched on, it's bringing me. And I'm doing it without fear. Because it's like, if you put fear on an artist, you put a ceiling on him.
Sure.
But a fearless artist is going to be incredible, right? Mm-hmm. So, me, it's just like, whatever that fear it did to me, I think it put a ceiling on my passion. Right? Because I will never call myself an artist, even though I am a martial artist.
Sure.
Yeah,
But it's not like you stepped into something, it's not like you said, like, I'm going to give up BMX because I've got some fear about it, and I'm going to, I'm going to take up stamp collecting.
Yeah.
Like, you decided you stepped into combat sports.
Yeah.
So it's not like, it's not,
the fear took the love and passion out of it. So and then that realized, so that statement says, well, if you're no longer having fun, what's the point?
Yeah, because it's not paying your bills.
Yeah, if you're not having fun, what's the point? And that's right there. It's like, boom, I'm no longer having fun, and I'm having a lot of fun. All right, getting choked out and getting my arm almost broken. That shit is fun. I don't know why.
Right, and you get one trip around on this rock. You get one trip to be here. That's it. So don't waste it doing stuff that. Like, I don't really get anything out of that anymore. I'm doing it because I feel like I'm supposed to do it. Fuck that.
That was just that, and then the snowball is just being self-competitive and self-improving. I've always that guy.
Yeah.
I did it until I was the best I could be at it and carry on, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I almost pride myself on. It's easily for me to commit in that. You know, like some people, it's easy to commit in relationships. Other people, it's impossible to commit in relationships, right? Me, I was all in. I remember when I was 17 years old, looking at my best friend at the time, said, yeah, I'm going to ride bikes for the rest of my life. That was,
and you believed it.
And I knew it. It was easy to say because, it's still it's still relative right now because I still have that bicycle. Right. I ride my pit bulls every single day of my life around the block.
Yeah.
So, but now I can say that for jiu-jitsu. And all it was is that same statement and commitment,
Yeah.
So
and some things
I will be a martial artist for the rest of my life. And after you start peeling away the ones you can and can't do, it's going to be jiu-jitsu.
Sure.
Because you can always roll around.
Yeah. You just you got to be on the floor.
Yeah. You got to be on the floor.
Well, and some things in your life, you elevate, and then other things you integrate. Yeah,
I like that.
Like right now, like for me, I think, well, I don't know. I'm in a weird in between era, but like talking about where you are, like martial arts is what you elevate now, and then the bike riding is what you've integrated. Like that's part of who you are. It's never going away.
Yes, sir.
Like you can't burn that off. You can't quit it. You can't leave it. All that kind of stuff. And then honestly, there's even some things that you probably just throw away. But that luckily, if you take something as a passion like you did, you're going to integrate it.
Yes, sir.
And that makes for, honestly, that makes for a pretty cool 60-year-old dude one day.
Yeah.
And that's that's kind of the point of why I do these podcasts and why that's what I want people to understand is like. It doesn't always have to be single pursue perfection all the time.
Yeah.
When you're doing it, look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Be a perfectionist, pursue things in a singular manner, but don't feel locked in. They're like, oh, I didn't make it to where I wanted to in that thing. I got to trash that. I don't want to. No, you just integrate it. And then you're a badass person at the end of it.
Yes, sir.
Like fail at 50 things in your life, but work really hard at them. And all of a sudden you'll be a really, really interesting cat to hang around with.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I 100% relate to that. It's like, yeah, I still ride the bike. Still I still have fencing gear in my attic just in case I ever need to teach one of my kids to fight with a sword for some reason. You know,
sir.
like I still have have it.
Yes,
like
sir.
it never goes away. I still watch it in the Olympics. I still talk about it. It integrates into what I train now. Like
I still watch BMX videos or the craziest, freestyle motocross vehicle or videos. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always still drawn to that. It's like it's just insane where I stopped and how much further it's even came. Like
Oh yeah, and that's
dude,
fun to watch
if
too.
if you listen, if you read the book. Dang it! It's not it's not Outliers.
The Malcolm Gladwell book.
Yeah, it's not that. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah,
but I totally drew a blank, and now it's disrupting my train of thought. But where were we right before that?
Oh, we're just talking about watching the sport. Go
Yeah, so
past
watching
you.
watching the sport, like, so I was around when Pastrana did the double flip.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That was insane. Right now, in bicycle world, it's now they're up to quad flips. And yeah, exactly. So the book that I'm talking about, The Rise of Superman.
Oh,
Boom.
okay, yeah,
Have
yeah.
you read that
Yeah.
book?
No, I have not.
It's incredible. And if you there's a trio. That's how I pronounce or offer books to read. I'm like, oh man, some reason fell into a pattern of these threes: Art of Learning, Outliers, and The Rise of Superman. If you read those 3 books, that's a brain cocktail for holy shit, in my opinion, because, if I know you heard about the flow state.
Oh, yeah, for
Right?
sure.
So the flow state is heavy in there. The flow state of that, and then the chemical cocktail that it makes, stuff like that, but then also the Art of Learning, the building blocks of learning. You're just like, oh my God.
Well, yeah, and like it primes you.
Yeah,
Like,
it was pretty awesome. But what I'm getting at is that on that Rise of Superman, how they base the progress of those things is, in rotations. So if you took it simply between, the year 2000 and 2010, the rotations have been insane.
Sure.
Right? First it was 1 and now it's 4. Whoever did the first 720, now it's a 1080.
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But what he talks about is the chemical cocktail that it builds, and why is it on the alternative sports, extreme sports, why is the learning curve like this? And it all turns into the chemical cocktail that puts you in the flow state.
Right, because
the flow state, the state of flow puts you in that chemical cocktail. And that's why it's the learning curve is so insane.
For it. The change in equipment and gear doesn't account for it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's the riders. It's the people doing it.
Exactly. And of course you've heard, we'll use the Usain Bolt reference, right? The 4-minute mile was impossible. But as soon as that was broken, the dozen people followed right away.
Yep.
And now there's already talks of a 3-minute mile from a human being.
Which is insane, and like
what the fuck,
it's like there's an unlocking that happens. There's a certain, like, whether we believe it or not, that there are barriers to what we believe is possible, what we believe is elite level performance. But the one thing you can count on is that competitors, athletes, or anybody that's athletes, whatever it is, people that are competing, trying to move something forward, once they know where the boundary is, some are going to just try to blow past it no matter what.
Yeah.
But some are going to say, okay, that's what elite is. I'm going to be elite then.
Yes, sir.
And that's what it takes. And I really do like, I've not read that book, but I have read quite a bit on flow state.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that probably, for washed up athletes from anything, that is attractive about things like Muay Thai and martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because I can recapture that.
Yeah.
Like I can get in that mode again. Like you learn tricks over time, right? Like you learn tricks as an athlete on how to get into flow state, like your wide peripheral gaze, your breathing, like you learn tricks and you learn how to get to that place earlier. And it's really fun to find a new avenue for that. There have been, a handful of times now in sparring since I really started getting serious that I find flow. I find it again. Now, what's frustrating is I don't have the toolkit. I don't have, like, I expressed it to our buddy Tim this way. I expressed it to, I've reached a point now where I can see what I'm supposed to do. Like, I can see the openings, I can see them, but I don't know which tool to take out of the box.
Gotcha.
To use them.
Yes, sir.
But I think that's what attracts a lot of ex-athletes, is that new problem solving thing.
Yeah.
Like, obviously we talked about there are kids that are doing this now since, from the cradle, that
Yes,
they're learning mixed martial arts. They're not just learning Taekwondo, like they're one art. But I think I would recommend this for anybody, like, martial art, for anybody that comes from an athletic background and you're looking for an outlet, because it gives you that competitive fire and it gives you a chance to practice flow state, which is just, you feel like a magical being when it happens. Like anybody that's never experienced it, I would feel bad for them. But it's such an interesting body of research too, because just like you're saying, they're like, now they've really found that it's not a pretend thing.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not something that athletes or competitors have made up. Like there's a real, like you said, a cocktail of neurotransmitters and hormones that are happening.
Yes, sir.
That are putting you in that state, and they're learning to replicate that now.
Yeah.
Like and
well, that's what the art of learning he really breaks down, and he's like, I can help you get into your flow state, and he breaks it down. Same thing that I would break down a Muay Thai technique, he does it in that sense.
That's cool.
It's pretty wild because where that stems from is like everyone, he talked to a handful of people that came to near-death experiences. And again, I'm telling you, all three of these books, they reference each other, maybe not directly, but in that same sense. Right. But you talk to that guy or that woman that was in a near-death car accident or anything that was near death. And they're like, well, you didn't die, so can you recall those moments when you were going through it? And it's like everybody, word for word, I just felt like everything was in slow motion.
Slowed down.
Everything slowed down to where you can just see it, like you're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Right? Or that person that can lift something absurdly heavy off of that baby that's trapped under a car.
Sure.
Do you go around lifting cars? Right? But I guarantee if you've seen a baby
anymore.
under there, but there's a good chance you're going to lift it up high enough where you can save him.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is that coming from?
Yeah.
It's like, it really all it does is just zero in. It takes away everything, and you zero in on that one thing, and that's why it's in slow motion.
And
but
I don't remember, and I can't remember where I read this for the life of me, but it talks about the idea of flow state or hyper adrenal states, whatever you want to call it, when you get adrenaline dumps. Is like the reason those things seem so superhuman is because it's not optimal to be that way all the time.
Yeah,
like
it's impossible.
You and I right here, like it's for energy reserves, for survival, for everything. Me sitting here having a conversation with you, there's no benefit to me getting tunnel vision or me getting an adrenaline dump and being able to move a lot faster and contract a lot harder.
Yes, sir.
Like it just doesn't make sense. But it's a pretty cool response that we have built in.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, we'll just turn everything on for a minute.
Yeah.
We'll flip on the whole switchboard for just a little while here to give you what you need. And,
yes, sir.
I heard you reference Wim Hof one time in class too, and I thought that's really cool because that's just, it's so cool that they're like in so many different disciplines, you're finding these things that just flat out work.
Yeah.
And his breathing techniques are something that I tend to use. Whether it's before competition, whether before sparring or anything where I'm going to have to, like, you can legitimately use those along with other tools to find that state or find pieces of it, to find that certain feeling. Like, it's just as simple as how you're getting oxygen into your body.
Yes, sir.
Like, if you can replicate
and
that
he's
stuff.
just on the far side of the spectrum of the breathing, right?
He is,
like, he's an expert in that. In reference of the whole second life, like, this is all fun for me to talk about because all the way up until I broke my foot and all that stuff, ask me how many books I read.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even up to 26 and stuff like that, it was nothing. And now I even, like, in BMX, you know how many times I was in the flow state? More times than I could count. But I didn't know that until I was 32. When I read the book, it's like, oh, that's what I felt, where it was like, I didn't hear a crowd cheering my name to do this trick or do that trick. I'm just in the zone. I'm just riding my bike. And that's all I'm thinking about. Yeah. And it's amazing.
I expressed what was in my head perfectly.
Yeah, when I'm fighting, you don't hear about it, It's like you don't hear anything here. You don't hear any of the noise. It's like, no, I just see a guy in front of me. I'm going to fight him.
Right.
And if I'm lucky, I hear my coach because I practiced that, and he's been yelling at me for 8 weeks now.
Well, and that's a cool thing too, because a good coach can integrate themselves into an athlete's flow.
Yeah.
I think that's what good coaching does. It's not just saying the right things during practice and hoping it goes well in a fight or going well in an event. Yeah. It's that be in that state, but I'm also part of that. You've visualized this so much with a coach as a part of it and whatever other environmental factors are there that they can work, that they're not going to yank you out of stuff. I think that's a very cool part of coaching. Yeah. So now I got to jump right there. How do you get from, I rode BMX, broke my foot, decided to try Jiu-Jitsu. How do we get from there to you stepping into a cage to fight as a mixed martial artist? Like,
yes,
how do we get there? Because
so that all is the self-competitive core.
Sure.
Yeah, the self-competitiveness.
Because that was never a dream growing up. That was never like,
dude, if you only knew how non-confrontational I was when I was growing up, to the point where I would cry if I knew that I had a bully situation and stuff like that.
I told Ashley before you came over today, I was like, dude, Kevin is like the nicest, sweetest guy, and I just finished watching video last week, I just ran through like looking at the fights that are online. It was like, I watched him pounding people. Like, just it's a different mentality, different person. It's like he's a sweetheart. He's a really nice person.
Yeah. I'm actually, I mean, just to make fun of it, I'm a big pussy. I am. And it all comes from my core. You, as an adult, will forever be that little insecure kid in your own way, right? And this is the stuff that I'm having fun learning about being an adult. Like, I feel like, all the book reading and all that stuff, this is the fun part for me, because now when I see that kid in that situation and I'm already a pro, I'm like, dude, this is what's going on. So if you have what it takes to listen to me, you'll understand that I know exactly what you're going through. Yeah. Right. But so it's pretty, the whole fighting thing, Mike, is a whole, I'm telling you, life number 2 is a very interesting ride. It's very interesting. The other one was all about fun and learning and do what you can and can't do and all about that. Right. Because I mean, the first 10 years of your life don't even count. Right. I agree. That's 10 to 18, it's just like, okay, now you're old enough to where the parents are going to let you learn your own mistakes, whether it's from touching the hot stove to stealing your first piece of gum and how you feel about it, like stuff like that. And then then you have your puberty stages, you have your license, you have your, like, okay, I'm 18, I can buy cigarettes, do I want to, all that stuff, right? Yeah, stuff that you already know. But now it's time, like, okay, well, what I've done up to this day, I'm going to reference that, I'm going to integrate, right? Yeah. But now, how do I go from being choked out on knee on belly for my first class ever by a person who weighed 150 pounds, and I weighed 175 at the time, if you can imagine that.
Yeah, a little more of you back then.
Well, because I'm coming off my injury, and how did I deal with injuries? Then, so $5 hot and readies and a pint of rum was good to go. It got me through this. The biggest injury of my adult life was a shattered foot.
That's what most orthopedists recommend.
Right, yeah, they say, numb the pain, don't worry about it, right? And you don't feel stuff when you're drunk, so you're probably going to try stuff that you shouldn't do, right?
Yeah, it's a good combination.
Yeah. Solid. So, dude, I mean, I have so many wild pockets of my life. Like, I mean, not to get off tangent, but I never been drunk until I was 24 and 25 years old. Wow. I didn't drink. There's a fun little insert, right? Well, how did that happen? Well, both my parents were alcoholics. Turns out when I see something I don't want to do, I usually don't do it.
Avoid it, yeah.
Right? So that kind of stuff. Like, I was drinking, I was, my jiu-jitsu journey was coupled with my drinking journey. Ooh. Talk about a weird thing, right? Talk about a person who's just learning what alcohol does and drinking and having fun and being drunk, and then add heartbreak into that, full throttle drinking and still training 5 and 6 days a week and still making it to work on time, and being hungover and all that stuff. Talk about a weird dichotomy, right? Of like the disciplined self, the inner disciplined self that I've had since childhood, being mixed with this and being drunk, and then going from BMX to jiu-jitsu. It was a wild ride, man. 26 to 30 when I'm still, I'm training all the time. I'm done with BMX. And I get on the mats and I'm I'm white belt, my 4 stripes, get my blue belt. Okay, I'm having fun. I'm getting better at this. The drinking is just now like tapering off. Blue to purple belt was probably the prime of my drinking. And then it trimmed off, right? So
why do you think that happened?
Well, to do what I love, right? Your body says pick one. Right?
There it is again.
So, and the thing is like, well, I didn't have it, so I got to go from 0 tolerance to build my tolerance to lose my tolerance, all in a 5-year span.
Yeah, you didn't get that 18 to 30 like the rest of us do, like that
at all.
Long time to do it stupid. You had to just get your stupidity out of the way.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I kind of started, I started late. I was late to all the parties. From being a kid, a rough patch of being, late to the puberty party, late to the BMX party, late to the jiu-jitsu party, late to the drinking party.
I like
but
that.
But the thing is I was a mature drunk. I didn't have to go 16 in hiding. It's like, no, I was old enough to decide I wanted to drink that night.
Right.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, which is dangerous in and of itself.
Exactly, So anyway, it's a wild cocktail of what Coach Kevin is doing at that time, right?
So you move from when you're moving from purple belt to black belt.
Yes,
that's
sir.
the time where
That's the time. Purple belt to now is where it was the growth, like real adult growth, and I never even thought I was going to fight when I started jiu-jitsu. Same thing, I never thought I was going to do a professional BMX contest when I started riding, even though I knew I was going to do it for the rest of my life.
You're just doing these things for the love. You're not doing it with that in mind.
And then the self-competitiveness getting better and getting better. Well, then I had my first couple of jiu-jitsu tournaments, up to blue belt. And then blue belt I had a couple more. Well, purple belt, I watched my friend, one of my best friends, fight. And I'm like, man, how was it? I was so just curious. And then one drunken night, I'm gonna fight. But it was real. It wasn't like I had a few beers. So
are you training striking at all at this point? Or
yeah. I started day one, Mike. Yeah, day one, jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai.
Oh, you did a both.
And Coach Robbie was my first Muay Thai coach.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
So, a little plug there is that, day 2 is my Thursday where he taught the hour. So I've sat in an hour of traffic from 5 to 6 p.m. to take his first Muay Thai class, an hour of Muay Thai, 6 to 7, and then 7 to 8 was jiu-jitsu.
That's so cool,
So,
man.
yeah, day one I started both. And but after that, being so self-competitive and watching my friend fight, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And, when I woke up the next day, I still had the butterflies. So I knew it was real. Because, you know yourself better than anybody in the whole wide world, right? So if you're bullshitting, you're not going to feel nothing.
Right.
I didn't mean that at all.
Yeah, I was just fucking around.
Yeah. So, I felt the butterflies. I pursued my first amateur fight, and it was wild, man.
I love that. I love that because you feel the butterflies. It's not like somebody told you had to do it.
Yeah.
You feel that because, I know I meant it. And I know that it means at the end of this road that I do it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's another one of those things. Not everybody has that, Kevin.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that where that's being accountable to you. That's being accountable to yourself. And that's what that means. It's like,
yeah.
That
I'm
asshole.
a man of my word, and I've prided myself on that for a while, and I think that just falls into that category.
Yeah.
To yourself, staying true to yourself. And
do you feel like you wanted to fight in any way? Was it just your competitive nature, or did you feel like, were you coaching and teaching at this point?
Not really. Maybe very, very seldomly.
So it really wasn't for the sake of this will make me a better coach. This was just.
Yeah, no, this is my own little journey. And the thing is what, the reason why I started fighting was all self-competitive, right? But now, why did I make that trek again and again?
Right.
And there was some figuring out, Mike. And I actually learned those lessons, and that was just fucking awesome in itself, man. And I think it was my second pro fight when I'm like, oh, this is why I do this.
You're right.
And you know what it is confronting that fucking demon of being the smallest kid in high school.
Yeah.
And being bullied and all of that and that non-confrontation. I'm telling you, man, and if if my parents were fighting, all I wanted to do is stop fighting. Just stop fighting.
Sure.
I want it to be normal. I was the peacemaker.
Yeah.
I do not confront people. My credentials, if you will. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm a black belt in Muay Thai. But if you owed me $5 and you owed me $5 for a month, and I'm like, man, I should go over to his house. Did you know that you would owe me that $5 for the rest of my life because I'm a pussy and I wouldn't confront you about it?
See
and that's the thing that's the lesson that I learned. It's like, oh, okay, well now I'm okay with I can be confrontational enough. So I learned that lesson. Now, why do you fight now? There's many different lessons. The same thing is what got Conor McGregor to that title fight, that hunger, is not going to be the same reason that he fights anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he doesn't have to fight to survive.
Yeah.
And that's why this last thing, he's like, I'm fighting for the love of it. That's why all the top fighters that hit that superstardom, they get put in a position after their first loss. It's like, what do I do? Do I still love it?
Yeah. Am I still winning the battle?
And are you still fighting the same fight?
Right.
And it's like, no, I don't have to do that anymore. I'm not scared to make that walk for the fear of another man beating me up. Because I took my L's.
Right,
and
exactly.
I've walked back to that cage.
Well, and most people have taken more losses in training than they'll ever take.
Yeah, that too.
getting in the cage.
That could be a whole nother, can of worms we talk about, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's a cliche that I think a lot of people that are just fans of the sport and or when they hear people say like I'm just out there competing against myself.
Yeah.
And I think what you said is so spot on to try to identify that, because that is a soundbite. But you saying it in a longer form right there was like having that realization moment of this is why I was here, is because I had to work this out of me.
Yeah. That's what got me there.
You're right.
Yeah.
I was fighting legitimately because I was competing and I was trying to discover me. I was trying to figure out who I am. And people, unfortunately, if they don't do anything that really pushes them, whether it's fighting, whether it's any sport, anything that they are competitive in, whether it's their career, they may not reach that moment where they realize like, oh, this has been all about me. This is all about me becoming, or me rational, or me putting to bed certain things, or me integrating certain things in my life. And I just think that's so cool to hear somebody reach, like, do a longer form version of that. Like that, is the fire still there? Like, and you talked about Connor. I think that's a great point. It's like, a kid that came up on the streets of Dublin working as a plumber, like, there's plenty to prove there. And, like, he probably wasn't the biggest kid growing up either.
Yeah.
Like, and all that gets you there to the top. But once you reach that, is there anything left now? And I think what makes people the greats is that they continue to find that compete with yourself thing.
Yes, sir.
George St. Pierre I don't think he cares about, he doesn't like fighting. He said that.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually enjoy it. Like, that's not the part he likes, but it's that self-discovery. It's a self-competitive part that gets you there.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, I mean, so that was in your second pro fight? You're saying that?
Yeah, pro fight. So I had four amateur fights, and then that's a story in itself, because I technically lost my fourth amateur fight, which you never want to go. It's rarity that you go pro on a loss.
On a loss, yeah.
Right? But that's a fight that it took me a while, probably 2 or 3 weeks, even though my coaches and my friends were like, dude, you won that fight. I don't know what. Don't beat yourself up over it. And like to convince myself and by myself. And after I watched that fight, and after I I relived the fight, like, I know I won that fight.
It was a decision?
He knows he won that fight. Yeah, I won that
decision?
fight. Yeah,
Unanimous?
it was a split, and it was just super lame. Like, because I beat him up pretty bad for 2 rounds, and he got the best of me on the 3rd round.
It's the recency effect, man. Amateur judging that can get him.
But check this out. So, and I ended up on top at the end of that last round, right? And the Joe Rogan of that organization was like, so, you pretty much got beat up those first 2 rounds, and you came back in the 3rd. How do you feel about the victory?
He's not watching. That's why he said that. He wasn't watching. I can tell you right now.
No. No, he was watching. He said that to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he said that to his face.
I thought you were saying he was saying that to you.
No, he said it to him. He goes, so you pretty much got beat up those first. So imagine how he felt, and he was just like, I just got to, pushing through and working hard. You got to thank my coaches, not answering the question and stuff like that. I'm like, you know what, coach? I do want to go pro because I am comfortable with that, because I know I won. I know I won that fight, regardless of the outcome. Like, I don't care. He knows, I know. That's all that matters.
You know the difference between, and that's a big deal. And I even talk about that with youth baseball players.
Yeah.
Really, whether you win or lose is not the biggest deal. I know that's not always true at a certain level, but you have to learn to identify the difference between a winning effort and a losing effort. Yeah. You have to learn to identify that.
Yes, sir.
And if circumstances take it away, you need to know the times where you need to say, there's a lot I could do better. Which is pretty much always. But like, you can also identify, like, there were circumstances beyond my control, but I know what a winning effort feels like. Yeah. And that's that is a big deal. So, and
I'll use that as the springboard into, the pro run that I had, right? So I go pro. My first fight is a 155, and I weighed in at 152, and that guy, had to cut to make 55, and then the next 2 were, wait, that was my. I lied to you. I just lied to you. That was my amateur. So my first amateur was 55, then it was 45, and then I went to 35.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, my first pro fight, 135, I'm still making that trek, and then I'm winning and I'm having fun. But my last pro fight, I lost. And what you just said, winning effort and losing effort. And that's another, again, where you're like, okay, well, why am I still making this trip? I know the reason why I got here. The next few fights were figuring out why I'm still making that. Who am I fighting? What's the battle I'm fighting?
Yeah.
That was the confrontation one. And I won that battle. I'm no longer scared. It's like, okay, well, now I just want to, now it'll be almost resume collecting, right?
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
building, not collecting. But that last fight, Mike, man, I don't want to take anything away from him because he won, and he finished me TKO in the third round.
Yeah.
But he did not outclass me. I know I can beat that. My not even my best day can beat that fighter.
Yeah.
Bottom line, and I can say that with confidence. I was fighting myself in there. And it was a battle that, it could be personal, whether it's the stuff that I have going on with my family. Everyone has their other battles, right? And when I was going in there, man, I had a lot on my plate, on the personal side, on the family, and then on the business side, dude, we had so much going on. Like,
Yeah.
I was cutting weight, teaching classes, and being part of the Legends Muay Thai seminar that we hosted.
Yeah.
Prepping and being there and being a part of it. Like, I went and weighed in, and then came back and still said hi to everyone that was at the Legends seminar at the gym. The day after I lost, I came back to the seminar on Sunday.
That's a weird place to be in.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild. And that's so, like, dude, I'm a list maker because I'm the regiment guy and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to conquer this fucking demon because he didn't beat me. I beat myself. And I was like, boom, boom, everything that I still have it to this day because I still want to fight. That's the reason I fight is redemption. That fight will be, my last fight will be for self-redemption
Yeah.
because I don't care if I win, lose, or draw, like you said. But I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna put on a performance, and it's for me.
Fight like you know how to fight.
and I have gotten over that fear, like the demon, the battle. Like, have you ever had that dream where you can't run fast enough? You're in a quicksand, or if you can't yell, you all of a sudden don't have a voice when
try to throw a punch and
yeah,
it's
you
like a
can't throw,
pillow.
or it's in slow motion.
Yeah.
That was a battle that I had a few times after that loss.
Wow.
Where you're in a position and you're like, you can't even match their strength. Like, your body's not firing on all pistons. Yeah, like where I'm like, I'm stronger than this guy, but I can't move him as fast as I want or as forceful as I want. Or if it was all jiu-jitsu matches that got, like, I finally had to beat that battle. So, okay, and it was the one at the Worlds is where I finally conquered that and had the platform to conquer that.
Yeah.
The Worlds where I end up losing by a bullshit manner, right? I mean, I broke the guy's foot. He tapped.
That was ridiculous.
I don't know what else I can do. I mean, you're the black belt in charge. You were certified. You have a certification. You have to be a black belt. What did you not see there?
Well, what astounded me was like the not protecting the athlete part. That's what astounded me about it. It's like, it's broke, man.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, we have footage of that guy walking, by the way, after. And he's...
yeah. And look,
Yeah.
they're fighters, man. You guys are fighters. You're going to be warriors, and like it's his job to protect. But
Yes, sir.
like tap notwithstanding, let's say the guy never taps. Let's
Yeah.
say he doesn't like
Yeah, and
change
then
his
still
mind
won.
mid-tap. Yeah,
It still won. Like, one of the Gracies, any of the guys that got their arms broke and didn't tap. Nogueira didn't tap when he got his arm broke by Frank Mir.
Sure.
Of course, the legendary, was it Henzo or Hoist got their arm broken, and
Yeah.
he didn't even show pain in the... He's like, never show that. Never show that in public,
Yeah.
And they go in the locker room like, yeah, my arm's fucking broke.
Right.
I'm going to start crying, coach, and that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, like, the beautiful part of that journey is figuring out the guy in the mirror. And that was what's awesome. And that like I said, the first day of the rest of my life was when it really wasn't even, I mean, the fighting, you could do it, but it was almost like, I don't know how books are written. Is it the epilogue at first, or is that the end?
That's the end,
So
yeah.
is it the monologue up front?
The prologue.
The prologue.
There we
Okay,
go.
so the prologue, that would be, when I started jiu-jitsu and did my
Yeah.
first tournament, right? And even through my fights, but the book, that the beginning of the book, not even the chapter of my life, was when Robbie gave me the job.
Yeah.
And that, like, I still fought and stuff like that. But those life lessons are, priceless and incomparable and so important to my life. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure, man.
And like, that's why I am here where I am. And like, I feel like I'm now put on this planet to be a coach. And I have a dream of coaching anybody in between a John Jones and a 6-year-old in their first jiu-jitsu tournament.
And that's how you have to do it, man.
Yeah.
You can't. I feel like as a coach, you can't just say like, I only work with the top level people. That's not how this works, man. Coaching is a passion. Teaching and sharing that is a lifestyle. It's not just a job.
Yes,
like
sir.
It is something that kind of integrates here. We talked about, the natural abilities and the talents and the learned things, the study and the research that go into learning that. And it's just, it's a holistic thing. Like, you don't just get to say like, I'm just going to, one day I'm going to be at AKA, or one day, I'm going to be at top team. And that's all I want to do. It's like, no, that's not how that works, man.
Yeah.
Because the dirty little secret is that you'll probably learn more coaching a 6-year-old than if you threw a brand new coach if you threw him into AKA, they wouldn't help anybody.
That probably is a definitely, by the way.
Yeah, that is you'll learn more teaching that 6-year-old than you'll learn teaching elite athletes. Most of what you teach elite athletes is just how to get out of their own way.
Yeah.
That's what you end up teaching.
Well,
more times
you're
than often.
teaching that inner 6-year-old.
That's right. That's very well put, right? Yeah.
Yes.
It's like all the insecurities and all the stuff that they brought along with them all those years. Like, let's work on that. Let's clean up that shop a little bit. That's working with top level athletes.
Yes, sir.
Usually extreme talent or extreme achievement doesn't come without a little bit of head case attached.
Big
to
time.
That's the way it works, man.
And honestly, you can break that all the way out to just humanity itself, right? The humans always have their battle, and that's kind of this new I'm not going to say spiritual side, but just eye-opening, different perspective of being a human and all that kind of stuff. It really has my attention from people like Jocko Willink. Joe Rogan is definitely in the mix. Jordan Peterson, and even off the someone as far as like Sam Harris, who is just an intellect. Like I feel like I went through so much of my life, living in the moment on that sense, but it was almost like ignorance.
Sure.
Like there was so much ignorance, and it's like, man, you know what you were blowing through? Like, not that you had to be so aware of all of that stuff going on at the same time, because that could be almost annoying in itself, right?
Sure.
But just being a little more aware. Like, you can start that journey a little earlier than 30, Kevin. You know what I mean?
But a lot of us don't, man.
Yeah,
a lot of us have been kids for a long time.
Yeah,
We're just children.
Yeah, I mean, and I will forever be young. I mean, I'm a young 38-year-old.
I did not buy that you were 38 when you told me, by the way.
And it's not just in the
pissed
looks.
Off. I was like, why do I look like this?
No, dude, you have the youth side, and the thing is like, keeping up with trends is the youth, the inner youth in us, right? That it just is. Like, the reason why I wear joggers at almost 40 years old is because the 20-year-olds made them cool. It's like, yeah, well, I'm still that guy, and you're always gonna be that guy. And when that guy dies, it's probably a sad story. Right, that kid. Like, I mean, how are you gonna, if you're now an old man and you're not gonna relive that youth? How are you gonna bring a child into this world?
Absolutely.
Right? How can you be the old guy at a 6-year-old table?
Well, how do you do anything and freeze in time? How do you do anything? I don't understand people that can just, wherever they are, they're happy with it and they're satisfied and they freeze in time and they're that.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of those people aren't happy.
They're not.
Even the ones that are content are a rarity, right?
Yeah, and honestly, and happy, whatever. Like, fuck happy. Like, just be engaged. Be into something.
Yeah.
Like, happy's great and everything, but happy can be fleeting. Happy can come and go.
True.
Like, have a purpose.
Yes.
Like, have something you're working towards. Like, and plus, the only reason that I wear anything close to I run a clothing company, so I have to. I think if I didn't, I'd probably be wearing.
Man of many talents, by the way. Which we should flip the questions around next time.
We'll do that sometime. But yeah, I mean, if I didn't, I might just be like rocking a weave belt and Dockers and a golf shirt like everybody else in my neighborhood. But but it's fun. Like it's that the face you give to the world is a creative outlet. Yeah. And I think people like discount that a lot of times. And it's fun to mess around with, how you look or what you're into. Like, I like that I have weirder hobbies than everybody around here. Yeah. I like that my neighbors are like, what is the thing you do again?
Yeah.
Like, I like that.
Same.
Like,
I know. Yeah.
It's fun because in my age bracket, in my, where I live and everything, these things don't come up. I kind of have blue collar interests in a white collar world. Yeah. Like, I'm into lifting and strength sports and fighting and like, I throw sticks in a field and like, all this weird stuff that I do and like it doesn't fit, but that's only a process of you don't choose to do what fits the mold. You don't pick this like freeze in time moment where you're like, well, I got buddies that all do mountain biking. I'll do mountain biking or whatever. Like, I don't care about mountain biking. I don't want to pretend to. Like, I've got that luxury, and like I think that's like you're saying, as you get up closer, to actual adulthood, wherever that happens to be. Probably well after 30 for us, unfortunately. But once you get to there, you start to realize like, this is who I am, man. Yeah. Like this is it. No matter, it doesn't matter like the money that I make or where I live or who particularly my friends are, or like I still get to be me. Yeah. Like I don't get to have it enforced on me that just because, I do this certain job, I have to look this certain way. Just like you're saying, like just because you're like actually a fighter, a professional fighter, doesn't mean you have to be a confrontational asshole. Yeah. That's what maybe everybody expects of you, but you don't have to be that. Yeah. You don't have to be. And just, that's my version of I don't have to wear like, Dockers and a weave belt. Yeah. Although weave belts are super comfortable. There's no holes. You can, no matter how big or small you get. It right in there. Yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like that'd be great. You gotta, you know what? If you're gonna cut weight again, you should consider getting a weave belt sponsorship because, as you're dropping the pounds, you could put the belt anywhere you need it to be. I'm just saying.
In the BMX days, it was a shoestring.
Nice. Not a lot of weight cutting in the BMX days.
But exactly. But it's all it is like it's free. And it's like I don't have a belt or I lost my belt. Just tie it up and you can tie it any length on it.
It's more of a free and I'm poor situation. Yeah, I'm familiar with those too. Sir. Like, well, dude, this has been a ton of fun. Like you're a super interesting cat, man. I'm really glad you agreed to do this. I mean, up until a year ago, I would almost say no. I'm not interested. I'm just that. But the thing is like now the two vehicles through my life, BMX, or two passions, which are my vehicles through life, BMX and martial arts. It's been a wild ride, and I can say to you or my future kids, hopefully, that Dad was a professional BMX rider and he was a professional fighter. And then, whatever my next chapter in the coaching world is, and future gym owner, by the way, put that message out in the world. You got your first member right here, buddy.
Yeah, dude. And it's going to be a fun. And I think my path is a little different than everyone else's. Like, I don't meet many other people that have done what I've done and got to where I have. How I have. So I'll say, I'm slightly interesting. It's an interesting story, but, I'd like, I don't know. I wanted to say that's a compliment because it's hard for me to say that it's hard for me to say I'm good about anything or anything good about me. Yeah. To be completely honest, like I can't say I'm a good coach confidently yet. And that's a goal of mine. I can't say, I'm a good BMX rider, Right. That's a hard one. So I don't know. Thanks for thinking I'm interesting, basically.
Yeah, you know what? Instead of worrying about saying you're good or great at something, I just say you love doing it. That's good enough.
I fucking love it to death.
That's yes, right, sir. Man. Well, where can the people find you, man? What do you want to tell the people about where to find you?
Well, to the people that would be interested in this, if you're looking me up, you can type in the two lives that I've lived, Kevin Troyer BMX or Kevin Troyer, MMA. But, it's just my name on Facebook. It's my name with two, what are the underscores on Instagram.
Man, so Kevin. It means you're late to the game. You're later than the other Kevin Troyers.
Kevin underscore M as in mom underscore Troyer at Instagram. And yeah, it's really that. But if you really want to find me, come to Team Rabati, and it's I guess it's in Round Rock on the county line. But if that's where you want to find me in my element, and you want to train martial arts, that's where you'll find me.
If you're in Central Texas and you'd like to come kick me in the face,
there we go.
That's the place to come do it. Too.
Yes, sir.
Anybody listening that lives in Central Texas and wants to come hit me, that's the place to come do it. I'm sure there's lots of you out there. No, man, I very much appreciate your time, and thanks for being a great coach. Thanks for being a teacher. Very much appreciated, and we'll do this again sometime. That was fun, man.
I'm down. Yeah, it was a blast. I've never had it before. I think that's what really intrigued me, because you were brave enough to say, "Hey, man, would you want to do it?" And I'm like, "Why not?"
So that's what got us in this situation to begin with. Why not? Yeah, I'll ride BMX. Yeah, I'll fight. Yeah. Why not?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Likewise.
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
Can't stress enough how cool of a conversation that was, and that is like the perfect kind of podcast guest for me. It's somebody that you go in with one idea of what you're going to be getting, or you have one reason you want to talk to them that you think might be fascinating, and you dig in and you find all these fascinating nuggets that person has in their past and their background, and you find common ground. And you find that, like when Kevin and I were talking about coaching, that a lot of without even expressly talking about them before we got on the microphone, we shared a lot of the same philosophies. And it's a nice reassurance as an athlete, as a coach, as a person trying to develop, that somebody out there is thinking and feeling these same things and putting them into practice, and they're discovering them too. And it's also, as a personal note, it's nice to find that somebody is in their mid to late 30s. I guess I'm fully in my late 30s. There's no mid left anymore. But somebody's at that age and they're still discovering and growing. That it's not, things aren't freezing. So that was very cool. Kevin's all about being in motion, forward motion, and being in motion and being active. That's a big part of what he teaches in martial arts. And hey, what do you know? It's a big part of his personal philosophy. So I was definitely stoked to talk to him. So I want to thank all of you again for coming along for the journey. Thank you for listening to the Do Whatever podcast. You can find all the episodes of this at MikeBeach.com. Hey, it's just my name. That's an easy website to remember, right? But it's 2 E's, not EA. BEECH, MikeBeach.com. You can find all the episodes there. You can find all the stuff I'm getting into at MikeBeach.com. And then, follow me on Instagram. You'll see updates about, things I'm recording coming up. If you have not followed me already, it's Beach with 9 E's. If you have any questions or you have any ideas about future shows, or if you have, your own personal rabbit holes that you're going down that you want to share or you'd like to hear an episode about, leave me a review. Go to iTunes, leave a review, put it there. I always read those. I check those incessantly. So that's a good way to reach me and talk about show ideas. So again, thanks for coming along for the journey. Talk to you guys next time.
A little girl, you grown up big and tall. And if you leave me, that's okay. I need you now, but I can't